And our top story we've just learned about in the past hour. Comedian and actor Chris Farley is dead. His body was found today inside a Chicago apartment building. The cause of death is not yet known. He was 33 years old. Chris Farley got his start with Chicago's Second City comedy troupe, but is perhaps best known for the large and energetic characters he created during his 4 years on Saturday Night Live, including a fanatical Chicago sports fan and a bumbling motivational speaker. He also starred in several movies, including Black Sheep, Tommy Boy, and Beverly Hills Ninja. We're now joined by writer and comedian Al Franken, who just happened to be in our New York studios being interviewed when we learned of this story. Al, we know that you were friends with Chris Farley, so we're sorry about this loss. And what will you remember about your friend?
Well, this is, I mean, you know, it's not a shock. Chris had some problems, and one of them was eating, and he had some other problems too. I really loved Chris. Chris was, what I probably remember about him is, aside from, of course, that he's hilarious and was hilarious, is he was a huge-hearted guy. My father died about 3 years ago, and when a parent dies, you get a lot of notes and calls from people. Chris wrote me the most beautiful note. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy. And what part of, I suppose, what made Chris so funny was the vulnerability, and the vulnerability was about whatever the lack of self-esteem was that causes, to some degree, an addictive personality who eats the way Chris did. But he was a sweet, big-hearted man.
Lorne Michaels, his boss at Saturday Night Live, had warned him not to live like his idol John Belushi, who also died early, and said even though that you're going to be larger than life on the screen, try not to be that way in your personal life. And from what you described, it sounded like perhaps he was trying, or in some ways achieved that. Do you think? He
struggled with this. I mean, he struggled very hard. He had periods where he was under control, and then he had periods where he wasn't. And I did this character, Stuart Smalley, who was about 12-step programs and stuff, and Chris and I had a lot of talks about this, and I know this was just a very, very difficult, obviously something he couldn't conquer. And I just, you know, I know how close Chris was to his father. To some extent, Tommy Boy was about his relationship to his father, and my heart just goes out to his mom and his brothers and sisters. They're a big, very close family, and this is very sad.
And as far as the type of comedian that he was, what will you remember most as far as what he brought to the screen or his works?
You know, I was here at CNN. Someone, as you are sometimes in a newsroom, someone will walk through a room and go, "Chris Farley just died." And so I'm kind of, you can understand my reaction is shock and sadness. Then I saw a clip that you showed, and he was funny, and it just made me laugh. And he was hilarious. And I guess you're showing one now.
Yes, we are.
And this was, I guess, as I'm looking at it now, of him hosting the show a few weeks ago, and or a few months ago, and it was quite disturbing because he was bigger than, you know, I told Chris and I would laugh about this. I told Chris when he first got there, I said, you can lose 40 pounds and still be the fat guy. And Chris would laugh, and one thing people probably don't actually know about him was that he was an incredibly graceful athlete.
Didn't know that.
We used to, we'd play basketball, you know, some of the healthier things we would do at the show. We'd play basketball and football and other sports, and he was an amazingly graceful athlete, which was part of the reason he was such a funny physical comedian.
Well, Al Franken, again, we thank you. Remind our viewers, you just happened to be in our studios. You were a friend of his, so we know this is difficult, sticking you up on the camera like this, but you've said some nice things about your friend, and we thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Lou.
Now on to Plano, Texas, where a tense